And we are live. So hi everyone, welcome to the Hoop Stats Unplugged podcast. Megan and Aaron here as always, and we're very excited today because we have a great group of guests here. We got Erica McCall and her father, Coach Greg McCall, here with us today to talk about everything that's been going on. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, we really appreciate you being here. And, it's obviously an important time in our country. I think one of the messages really of the last few weeks is how it's not just been the last, week or so that's an important time, but really this whole kind of era maybe. And so we really wanted to talk to you to, help us learn, me specifically, but, us collectively, both myself and Megan and our listeners. I think that most people or many people that follow women's basketball are maybe predisposed in some ways to this issue. So, but I don't think everybody is. And so, we've all experienced our lives, have had different experiences, but we know that they're not the same as yours. And so, I really was interested to hear more of your thoughts at this time. So I think I'll start maybe asking you, Erica, just like what's been going through your mind since, really the news of what happened to George Floyd specifically happened. You saw that?
Yes. For me, it's kind of been a transformation of a mindset for me in the beginning.
Uh-oh. Well, second. One more time there. You were saying in the beginning. Okay. Very biblical.
I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Okay. So everything was kind of numb for me in a way when I see that another Black man or a Black woman has gotten killed. I kind of have a numb feeling because it's something that happens a lot within the Black community. And so I really needed to reflect on that so that I can really try to feel the pain that my other brothers and sisters in the Black community have been feeling. So with that, I had a lot of prayer and reflective moments. And I decided, I prayed about it, that I needed to go to a protest. So I went to a protest in Bakersfield actually and felt very empowered. Felt like I was doing something for my community. Felt like I was helping a start of a change. And with that, I felt more stronger and more confident to speak my voice, share my voice, because I know it's important. I know I have a huge platform. I know people want to hear from me. I know people want to hear what I think about what everything is going on. I'm extremely hurt that George Floyd and Breonna Taylor died in the way that they did, but I truly do thank God for their lives, and I thank God for the legacy that they're living right now.
Yeah, that video of his daughter on, I think, Stephen Jackson's shoulders. Did you see that? Talking about how her dad had changed the world was so powerful.
Yeah, really powerful.
Yeah. How about you, Coach McCall? How have you been experiencing it?
It's been an emotional roller coaster for me. Sadness, disappointment, anger. Me being a Black man from Alabama, and I've experienced a lot. Growing up, I grew up. I was born. I'm not about to tell my age, I guess, right now. I was born in 1968. Of December, and that's the year Dr. King got assassinated in April of 1968. And as I continue to get older and see certain things, I was raised by my great aunt, and she sheltered me from a lot, tried to shelter me as much as she could from a lot of those things by just making sure that I was taken care of, and just seeing the things that as I got older, to seeing the things that she had to endure and had to go through in order for us to make it better for ourselves, try to make a better life for ourselves it was tough at times. Now looking back at it, you had in Alabama, it's strictly black and white. There's no in between. The only time that you really had any type of encounters with a white person, if it was some type of services or something like that was rendered, as far as either one of the African American working in the mall and a white person buying something from the mall, they would encounter, maybe speak and talk, or vice versa. If we were going to the mall and they were working at the mall, we had to, speak to them and talk to them. those only encounters. Other than that, you keep moving. Some days if you happen to make eye contact, they would speak. Most of the times you knew that it was just a natural thing to just continue to walk, and you do your part, they do their part. You stay out of their way, they stay out of your way, and but coming in today, and what happened with George Floyd, it's eye-opening. It's I think you could see a whole lot of change. You could see that with the protests. You have all people of different color protesting, and that's something that you wouldn't have seen. And that was just recently back in 1992 when Rodney King, and then also you could see it when it was just in Virginia a little while back, when they had what was going on there with the race riots, and guy drove the car into the people, and it wasn't like it is now. And George Floyd, leaving his legacy behind, to me, he's considered a hero. It's sad that he had to go through what he had to endure in order to bring a lot out in people. And you can see both sides now kind of, trying to fight for some justice, and something that has been, we've been suffering for a long time and just asking for a long time. And Reverend Al Sharpton, I was looking at the memorial service today, and he was talking about, we've been asking for people to get off our necks for a long time in different areas, with schools, with just having to, being able to do some of the same things that our white counterparts were able to do. But you won't let us because your knee is on our neck. And so it was one of those powerful speeches that he gave, and it's eye-opening, and it makes your emotions just kind of go all over the place. And but it's so eye-opening now, and I'm glad to see that it feels like something is actually starting to happen. I'm hoping that we can continue to push and to be able to use you guys as a platform for what you guys are seeing, and having us to come on and speak, and me use my platform as a coach, and you guys use your platform as a media outlet to let people understand. And you guys can go out now and you can educate people and talk to other people, and you guys can reach more of an audience on the white side to educate people about what's really going on, what we've been fighting for so long, and now we can actually start to see some movement behind it.
Definitely. I think you both alluded to, Erica, you said we're at the protest. You've talked about how kind of it feels a little bit different, it seems, right, than past scenarios. Have you both felt that way? Does it kind of really feel like change is going to happen? Are you cynical, optimistic?
Yeah, it really does. And I'm pretty sure, like, when she was out there protesting, and I'm watching it, you see protests in the past. If you probably look to your right and left, you would see another black person. Now you're protesting, you might look to your right, left, front, and back. You might have a white person, another person of color, protest right along with you, which has never been done. You've never seen that before. And before you think about it, it's called a protest. Whereas before, you look at back when the Watts, we were supposed to have been protesting, it was called the Watts riots. You look at when Rodney King, what happened to him, it was called the Rodney King riots. And we were still protesting, but it got turned into called the riots. At least now we're actually saying the word that we're really trying to do is protest on the things that we were trying to, supposedly saying that we were rioting about before. And that's why it feels so different, because more people are understanding and now really are protesting. Yeah, you have some people out there still looting and doing some things that shouldn't be done, but I know they're angry too. But there's other ways about going about doing things. And some people have other goals of what they're trying to do with the rioting and things like that, another I can't, another way of looking at things. But you have a lot of people that are great people that are out there that are protesting. And that's what it feels like, an actual protest.
Well, that's great. I'm very encouraged to hear that you sound optimistic. I have to say I'm not sure how optimistic I am. I'm a similar vintage to you, Coach McCall. Megan's, I think, we're close to age to Erica. But I definitely remember. I remember the Rodney King riots happening. I was in college at the time, and I don't really remember it super vividly. But what makes you more optimistic now? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but compared to Ferguson, how did you feel then? That was 2014, right? Do you remember how each of you felt then and what feels different?
Yeah, it was, you still have people out protesting, but you didn't get that same feeling. It was like it was there, but okay, we did it for a little bit, but okay, hopefully something stops. And it didn't. And then you have now. This has gone not just here in America, but this has gone worldwide. People are protesting. You have people in Germany protesting. You have people in France protesting. You have people all over the world protesting. At one point, I think they said all 50 states were protesting. That has never really taken place like that. And I don't know how it was back in the early 60s when Dr. King was marching. Again, I said I was born in 68, so I was still an infant, but I don't know how those things took place. I don't know how many people were doing it, how far it got. But power of media today, the power of social media, the power of the video, and can help. Like I said, your voices, us educating you on how we feel about certain things. You can go out and, hey, share this, spread this word about this, and educate other people about it. And it'll be a great thing to have things to change. And again, it starts with little things like what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And Erica, you were at Stanford, right, during the events in Ferguson. What was that like, and what were the conversations you were having with people then, and how does that compare to today?
Yeah, I remember, as you know, Stanford doesn't have a very large Black population there. So there were protests being had, but very small compared to what was happening around the world, or around the nation. So it was powerful and it was strong, but I definitely had a different feeling from what was going on today. I can't quite put my finger on what's different today. Maybe that's just the life that George Floyd had, or Breonna Taylor had, and the impact that they had, or maybe it's just the last straw on the camel's back. We're just fed up of it, and it may be a combination of all those things. But it definitely feels different now. People are talking more. I have friends. Probably the biggest change from then to now is that I have friends, white friends, people of color that are contacting me, asking me, "Am I okay? How do I feel during this moment?" And that's been huge for me. Tara Vanderveer, my coach Tara Vanderveer, called me yesterday, just checking in on me to make sure that I was okay during this climate of the world. And it was really good. It feels really good. It's not something that I expect of them. It's not something that I'm like, oh, my friends need to call me. If they don't call me, then I need to get rid of them, or they're against the movement. But it's just it's a nice sentiment that people are reaching out and all trying to stay united during this moment.
That's good. I guess, along those lines, what kind of conversations have you been having with your friends, with teammates, with your players, coach, this week, and with all this going on? Is it different from what it's been in the past?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a couple days ago, we just had a Zoom meeting. And it was, I started off the Zoom meeting, I usually started off with all business. I start off with academics, how things going with that, finishing up strong in the classroom, talking about maybe a preview of something that happened with basketball throughout the season, and asking them how they're doing, about a lot of things, about what we're looking and planning on coming back and those type of things. Well, this particular Zoom meeting, I didn't go into any of that. I went in and just asked about, what are you guys feeling? How are you feeling about what's going on? And then I started it off with myself and talked about my own personal feelings, and it just went from there. And we had because I have a diverse team, and we have, it was really emotional, powerful Zoom meeting. It was something that was, I think, needed to be done. I felt in my heart with my team, because I do have a lot of African-American young ladies on our team. I have a couple white girls on our team, and they needed to hear from each other. And it actually was really powerful how they responded to each other and how much love they have for each other through this crisis. I have a white coach on my team, and he and we spoke a lot of times about it way before, just different things. But he's been so outspoken about a lot of things. He's shared a lot of things on Twitter before, and how he just didn't ever understand, and how this has been such an educational, eye-opening experience for him, and how much he appreciates the fact that what we're going through has educated him. And he's been so educated, and he's just continuing to share and wants to talk to me a lot about a lot of things, and asking more and more questions, and also after he's asking those questions, sharing it with the world through his eyes and what he's seeing. He just hung up for me right before I got on this call and asking me about how did I feel about the Drew Brees situation. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to him a little bit about that, and he was angry. He was upset about that. And it's just been really eye-opening with my players, with my staff. It's been really, really good. It's been really good. And just to let them know that they're young ladies, that they're African-American young ladies that are going out in this world. And I talk to my own kids, and I tell them that all the time. I'm not going to tell you anything that I haven't told my own kids. And that's why Erica, she's sitting here, because she knows that everything I'm telling you guys, she's already heard. And so I was sharing that same thing with my team.
Yeah. Before we hear from Erica on a similar question there, could you just follow up a little bit? Because I've been reflecting over the last week and a half about the conversations I've had with African Americans that I've worked with. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about how it's come up in the past, as you just mentioned. Is that something you opened up about and drove conversations to, a year or two ago? Is it something that people are asking about? I guess for me, I'm just trying to understand how to make those conversations happen, not just in this time, but, a few weeks from now, a few months from now, a few years from now.
Right. Well, when I was talking about Zach and I, we had a conversation before. It might just come up where I was talking about something about basketball with me and how I played back in the day. Mm-hmm. And it would go from that to something else, into how I played and who I played with, and raised how much that played a part in it. And mm-hmm. he would listen to those stories, and he would share his stories. And some of those stories would be so funny because he never had the opportunity. Even when he was, I remember, because I played at Cal State Bakersfield as well too. And I remember him coming in as a recruit. And we share this story all the time with each other, as well as with other people, about how he came in and he was this scared little white guy, and his coach sent him out to play against us. And it was 4 or 5 of us, 4 black guys and 1 white guy that was on our team that played at Cal State Bakersfield. So, like the older guys versus the younger guys. And I'm talking trash to Zach, and I'm just giving him the earful. I'm talking so much trash to him. And for a long time, this guy, man, I didn't like this guy. I hated that guy. I don't like him because he talks so much on the court. And now, of course, he works for me, and he's a great friend more than anything else, more than, because he's been with me since day one, since I got the job. And he can share that story about how it was for him as a white guy then going against a lot of black guys that he's never played with before because of the small city that he came from. And so he shares that story. And those are the type of things that used to come up. And that's why we talk about certain things that will get into a conversation about white, black, and he would get educated on those things, and he would listen. It was more him listening than anything else.
So just a natural conversation, tell a story about a road trip, and then maybe something had happened on a road trip and you're relating a story like that. Yeah, I can understand that. I played Division III basketball, and definitely we had an incident where, I went to MIT undergrad, so it wasn't quite as diverse as it was more like Stanford than Cal State Bakersfield. But, one of our players was called the N-word during a game and, immediately reacted. I forget the details of it all. But in terms of, whether like punches were thrown or something. But, I'm sure unfortunately we still face things like that today. Erica, so yeah, what kind of conversations have you been having with your, teammates, friends? You talked about Coach Vanderveer, but, in general.
Yes, a lot of it has been based off of what's happening in the nation today. I actually just had a conversation with my trainer from Stanford. We're good friends now. And she just called me and, was just kind of apologizing for everything that's happening right now. But she also just said she wanted to be educated. And she asked, is it okay if she asked me questions about what's going on? Because she felt that she was she felt ignorant to kind of, what's going on, the emotion behind it. And that's kind of what my conversation been. We just kind of had a natural conversation about how I feel, how my dad feels, just knowing that I have black family members, father, brother, mother, sisters that I worry about because, every day we're getting hunted down, and it's very scary. And so I've had that, and, she's white, so we had that conversation, but also having conversations with my other black friends, just telling them about how we feel about certain things. And it's been very comforting knowing that we all support each other, knowing that we're all going through the same thing. And it's just been a really reflective time of the year. And I hope that we can continue this on and people aren't afraid to ask questions more, because that's ultimately how we all get educated. That's how we all become united, is when we understand each other more. And so I hope that continues on after all this is kind of settled down and over. I wouldn't say over, but this is kind of settled down.
Yeah.
I think you've both kind of talked about how important it is that people are trying to be educated and learn more. What else do you think is really important right now, not just this week, but going forward, so that we see real change?
Just like Erica was saying, we just kind of continue to educate people, no matter what color they are. Just continue to educate. We had a great Zoom meeting with our whole staff at Cal State Bakersfield yesterday, and it was a great Zoom meeting. It was quiet at first, and then our head coach, men's basketball coach, spoke a little bit, and it just kind of opened the door for other people to get an opportunity to speak and try to get an understanding. And it was a lot of things that were shared. And my athletic director, great guy. He spoke about a lot of the things. First, he was the first one to speak about it, and he's wrote a lot of things out on Twitter, his message. And I just love the fact that I'm in a place that at CSU Bakersfield that has accepted everything that we've been able to go through, especially now. And so I can't ask for a better place to work for and better people to be around than the people at Cal State Bakersfield. And just, again, a lot of things going to take some time, but us getting out and voting, us getting out making the small changes from top to bottom, everybody has a role they can play. You have some people that have more powerful roles than I do, than Erica does, than you do, that can make a change. But we're all here trying to do something different, by speaking about it. Like, again, I've talked about you guys putting this message out there. Us voting can make that change, to change some laws, change some rules within different policies, not just on police, but on other things that'll make a huge difference with us in the African American community. And starting with the vote, and doing those things there, and starting with our higher politicians all the way down to our local, mayors, and doing those things. So I think that's going to be the way that we can see change being made. And we're starting it right now with the protests. And we got to continue doing that in order to make that happen. I think that's something that we should do, speak out a whole lot more.
It's interesting to hear you talk about voting. That was definitely a question I wanted to ask about. I wasn't sure if there'd be a generational split between the two of you on the importance of that. Erica, do you feel like you and your friends sort of see voting as a important step? I think maybe I saw you tweeting about it in the last day or so, actually. Or, you might think from looking at my Twitter feed of people under the age of 30 that they're very cynical about the power of voting. Certainly, we know that not a lot of 18 to 29-year-olds or 34-year-olds, however the demographics are split by the different surveys, are actually voting. So I was wondering if you could talk about that and the importance of voting by young people and African Americans as well, which has historically been, I think, for a lot of reasons, undercounted in the voting relative to the population.
Right. Yeah. I feel I can only speak for my generation, but I feel like we are more empowered than ever. We are more vocal than ever than we are, and that goes a lot with social media. We just have the confidence to speak about what we care about. And I think a lot of people are very passionate about politics, more than we've seen before, especially from young people. Typically, people don't think that as young people we have a voice or our voice matters, and it truly does. Actually, the person, my best friend, she reminded me to go register to vote, and I didn't even think about it. She was a person that reminded me, and I thought it was important for me to continue to spread the word, because if we want change, it's going to start from the top. It's going to trickle down. And so in order for us to see real effects that's going on in the world, we have to use our voice. And I think one of the best ways is through voting. I think the African American community really sees that, especially through all the pain that we've been through, not only now, but for our history. We couldn't vote for hundreds of years. And I think it's such an amazing thing that we can do today is vote and use our voice. And we have that privilege now. And I think that we have to use it because that's the best way, or one of the best ways that we can truly see change.
Yeah, if you also look at the protests, back, if you look at a lot of the older video, you see a lot of the older people protesting. Now you look, it's more the younger generation, and that's the greatest thing ever, because now they can really get out there and push. Their voices now, they understand their voices are stronger than ever before. And they're seeing that. And now you can even see they're even more resilient, from than what we've been in the past. I mean, the older generation, we set the foundation, and now they're taking it. And so I commend them. I'm excited about it. And Barack Obama said it in a speech that he had the other day, how excited he was about the fact that our younger generation is taking this bull by the horns and running with it. And that's what you want to see. And that's what's going to make a huge difference, because it's a lot of them. And if we can get all of them involved, and then we still do our part as the older generation, it's just going to make things a whole lot better and make things that much stronger for us as African American, as well as the United States as a whole.
Gotcha. One other question I wanted to ask is around, today is June 4th, 2020, and hearkening back to what you said about how this whole, week plus has been very eye-opening. Like, how much, certainly I've been thinking about it, it's very top of mind for me. How much were you thinking about some of these issues on, say, June 4th, 2019? Were you having conversations just as long in your house over dinner as you made tonight or last night or whatever? Or, does it kind of recede and then come back when we see something in the news?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't as prevalent as it is today. That's for sure. But I think it was always in the back of our minds, for sure, because we experience it, we see it. every day. And so it's a pain that we keep lifelong. And so just because we didn't necessarily speak about it doesn't mean we weren't thinking about it, we weren't reflecting on it, especially when there have been countless unjustified murders of Black people. It's definitely something we think about. But because of today and how strong the media is today, how strong we all come together, the conversations are stronger, the conversations are longer, the conversations are needed, because there's so much pain, especially as Black people. We're expected to be so strong. And these conversations are so needed because we can break down mentally, and it's hard to see. And so I'm very appreciative of these conversations that I have with my dad, with my friends, my family. They're so needed for our mental health, and for us to continue on to keep the fight going.
Kind of the same thing she was saying, having those conversations. We've had a lot of conversations, but like she said, it just didn't stand in the forefront of like it does right now. The one conversation you always have, the Black family, is when you get pulled over. What do you do? And you tell your kids, and I have two sons especially that I talk to a lot because of the African-American male, of how they really perceive us when we get pulled over and things that have happened to us when we've gotten pulled over. Not saying that it won't happen to my daughters, but I've had that talk with them, but especially my sons, that talk. You know, I can tell my sons, you know, hey, make sure you comply with everything that you're supposed to do when a police officer pulls you over. Show your hands, be respectful, say yes, officer, no, officer. I'm reaching for my license. I'm reaching for to turn my car off. Trying to reach for it across your body with your opposite hand, not with the hand that's on that side. Just so they can see that you're having a struggle to get to it so it won't look like you're moving too fast. Those type of things. And continue to tell them as you're reaching that I'm reaching for this. I'm letting you know again that I'm just going for this. Those are the type of talks that we had. And when I had this last talk again with them, it didn't hit me. Like I was telling them, I was like, yeah, you know, guys, this, yes, you guys can tell, see what happened. But my older son, Justin, he said, but Dad, that doesn't stop them from killing you. And so now my emotions went from the educational side to anger and sadness because I had no answers. For the first time as a dad, I had no answers for my kids. I give them answers all the time. They come and ask me all type of questions about life, about everything, and I can give them answers. I know where to go look for the answers, to come back and give them the answers. I can tell them what to do in society of certain different things. But this one particular time, I woke up the next day and I could not give him an answer. And I still can't to this day. What do I need to do to tell them how to cooperate so they won't get killed, so they won't get harmed? And my son, he got a speeding ticket about a few months ago. I don't know if Erica knows or not, but he got a speeding ticket a few months ago, and I was talking about it. And I got a lot of police officer friends, and so we call around trying to see what we can do, what's the best way to handle it, and things like that. And now I look at it, I'm just glad that he got the ticket and was able to drive off without anybody harming him.
Yep.
I'm glad about that. And those are the type of things that we have to look out for as Black males. Those are the type of things that they have to look out for as Black females, because what makes them not want to do something to them? So I have to make sure that, hey, watch how you talk. And I haven't told our team, watch how you speak to the officers. Make sure that you know what you're saying. Know where you're going. Make sure that you know that certain speed limits in certain areas. Know that in certain places that you go, in different areas of different communities, that you can't do certain things. You can't drive a certain way. You can't have your music loud in certain areas. So, because it can happen. So those are the things that I think, that the talks that we have with our kids and the talks that we love to have, that we sit around, and now that it's come to the forefront and it's standing out even more now.
Yeah, that's a question, actually, a topic that Megan and I were saying we wanted to ask you about. I'm the parent of a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. So one question I had for you is, like, when do you think you had those conversations for the very first time? Like, at what age, would you have had that with your sons for the first time? As well, and then the other question is, how is that conversation different for your sons and your daughters when you have that conversation?
Well, for me, it started young, knowing where you need to go, knowing how you're supposed to act at school, because you're viewed a certain way depending on what school you go to. And Erica went to all my kids went to predominantly white schools, and her classroom, she was, maybe two people in the classroom maybe were black, and she had to watch what she had to do, what she had to say, how she had to say certain things, how she had to act. And because of the color of her skin, not because of the person that she was, because of the color of her skin, because how they view it. And it just happened, I worked at a counseling center at the time when she was growing up. So I used to go out to a lot of different schools, and I had a lot of African-American kids on my caseload. And most of it was anger issues, those type of things that it had nothing to do with, something else that was wrong with them in the mental health part. Also, it was anger. But a lot of those kids didn't have anger issues. They just were viewed different because of how they were in the classroom, the color of their skin. And so those talks for me came early on how to act, what you need to do, how you need to look, how you need to dress. You can have white kids dressed in the same type of apparel, and my kids used to want to wear this and wear, like, no, you can't wear that. You can't get away. You can't do those things. You can't wear that because you're going to be perceived as this if you wear that. So the talks were all the time with me, with my daughters as well as my sons.
Erica, what do you remember about those conversations? And do you remember the first time your dad brought these subjects up to you, or your mom?
I don't remember necessarily being like, we're gonna have a race talk or how to, this is how you act when you're black. But it was just more natural conversations that we had. Just how do I act? What I need to do to make it to the next level as far as basketball, as far as education wise, knowing that I have to work harder because I am black to get to the places where I need to be, because just naturally black people have a disadvantage, just going all the way back from slavery. And so just knowing that I have to be polite to others, I think that was like the most basic of conversations we had, but that's something that has stuck with me forever. Like, being polite will carry me so far. Knowing that sometimes we call it code switching. Sometimes I have to speak, if I'm speaking to a teacher or someone of higher authority, I can't speak the same way that I'm speaking to them the way that I speak with my friends. My tone might be different, my dialect might be different. And so these are the things that they taught me that has carried me all the way through where I am today, just how to interact with people of different races and people of higher authority. And so I'm super grateful for my parents and everything that they taught me, because I definitely wouldn't be here where I am today, successful and knowledgeable about the world and how it treats us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's 100 more questions that we could ask you guys, but is there anything we didn't ask that you want to talk about that you want to bring up? Because I think the most important part is that we're listening to what you wanted to say and what you want to share.
Yeah, I can share, like, a little bit more about it. And I guess you could say the talk, because it really, you just, one of those things, like she said, just it comes up as a conversation, or it comes up as the depending on what they were doing. I remember taking them back to Alabama where I grew up and allowing them to see a different part of the world of where I grew up in the projects. And then we go right over to the outskirts of certain areas of Alabama, and it was totally different. And they could see the difference because it's still, like black and white there, and you could see the difference. And so she had an understanding at an early age of like, okay, this is what my dad is trying to educate me on without me having to actually say, I'm taking you back here. This is the history lesson I'm about to give you. It was just one of those things where we just did as a family. It just came up as conversation. And it was never like the talk like you would give, okay, it's time for my son to have that man-to-man talk. It wasn't that time when you just waiting to see when he hits puberty and he's starting to figure out like he loves girls and he's starting to like girls and girls are not yucky anymore, and that's when okay, it's time for me to have that talk. It never, as a black family, you never have that time to have that. You always have those talks from the time when that they are able to understand right and wrong and what to do and what not to do. You have those talks.
Absolutely. I want to be very respectful of your time. I really appreciate this. One other question that came up, actually I have two questions, which are in some ways unrelated. I saw a, sad but educational Twitter thread where someone tweeted that the first time, I think it was a policeman pulled a gun on them, they were 13. And when was it for you? And a lot of people responded with, lots of, some of them were people I'd never heard of. And, I think I maybe retweeted it and some people I knew responded as well with what had happened to them. So I'm curious in your family, like I can get some answers, but like, has that happened to each of you? I'm curious to hear the answer and how many times.
I don't know about for Eric. For me, mine's, I had one encounter last year. I was driving to LA to supposed to go pick up a recruit in LA, and I was talking to the mom on the phone, but then she couldn't talk anymore because of her job. So she was like, "Could you text me?" So before I go up what we call the Grapevine, I pull over to the side at a gas station.
All right.
And I sit there at the gas station and I'm texting with the mom because the weather was bad in Oregon. The weather was bad in Oregon, and we were trying to debate on whether or not that she was going to go ahead and try to fly out or not. And we were texting. So we're there. I'm there for at least, I'm waiting for her to check with the school, we checking the weather. So I'm there at the gas station for at least 15, 20 minutes, texting. And I decided, maybe we should try. So I go ahead and get ready to exit onto the freeway, and the mom texts me again and say, "Hey, hold on, coach. We're going to try to something else. Let's look at something else before you decide to take off." So I pull over right before I get onto the freeway, and I park right before I get onto the freeway. And I'm sitting there and I'm texting, still texting. And a police officer, highway patrol, pulls up behind me. And he gets out and he comes to the car and says, "Hey, what are you doing on the side of the road?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm a head women's basketball coach. I'm here. I'm just texting. I didn't want to be texting while driving. So I'm texting a recruit. If you want to see my phone, sir, you can see my phone where I'm texting a recruit trying to make sure if I want to decide on whether or not I'm going to drive all the way to LA or not. So I'm hoping it's okay." He's like, "Well, the people at the gas station saw you in their parking lot." And it was kind of early in the morning. They saw you in their parking lot and they called. And then they saw you pull over here. And they the one called and said, "Hey, there's a car out there." And I guess he said, apparently, and this is an area where I know that hardly any traffic ever goes because it's right before you go up to the Grapevine. Like, it's a lot of robberies been happening at that gas station. I'm like, okay. I'm in a pretty nice automobile driving, and I don't think I'm looking to do that. And so he asked me for my ID. So, of course, I did what I told my son to do. Officer, I'll give it to you, but my ID is in the console. I'm going to reach over and grab it if that's okay with you. Because, yes, go ahead and grab it. I was like, okay, I'm grabbing it out of this console right here. So I reach over across my arm and get it out, hand him my driver's license. He goes back and he runs it. And he comes back. He's like, well, this is a really nice car that you have. And I'm like, he's like, where'd you get it from? And I was like, well, it's part of the school. I'm a coach, and it's part of my deal with the school. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a really nice car. And he just kind of held me there for a long time. And it just so happened, as he's continuing to ask me different questions, another officer pulls up from a different department, from a different thing. He was from the sheriff's department. And so he's like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay over here? And he's like, how you doing? So I'm like, I'm doing great. I said, I'm the head women's basketball coach. He's like, asked what's going on. I was like, well, I was texting a recruit trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to go to LA, tell him the story. And he recognized, he's like, hey, I know who you are. He's like, you're the coach. Yeah, you're the women's basketball coach. And told the other officer at the highway patrol, like, hey, man, this guy's okay. You can let him go. He's like, coach, if you don't mind, just pull around to the other side over there at the Denny's, and you can stay there all you want to and text. And so I did. I did that. And but the other officer was looking like he was angry at the fact that he didn't get what he wanted out of me. And his whole complexion changed. He turned bright red. And that was my experience in 2019.
That's wild. How about you, Erica? Have you had similar experiences?
Thankfully, I've never had an experience like my father's or or anything worse. So I'm truly grateful for that. But I have heard stories of my grandparents who have been pulled over. My grandma, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, my grandma told me that she got pulled over years ago, maybe like 30 years ago or something. And they had pulled a gun out on her because they said that she fit the description of a black male. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Nothing like a male at all. No word.
It was
very, very feminine lady.
It was because they were driving, I think it was a Buick. I think it was a new Buick, which was like a nice, very nice car at the time. And so, just because she was a black woman, so I was a black person driving a nice car, they pulled her over, pulled a gun out on her. It's ridiculous. And so with those stories, like my dad, like my grandmothers, my grandfather experienced a lot of racism too. It's very humbling for me, and I'm very appreciative that I've never had to go through anything like that. But I still acknowledge their experiences. I still acknowledge their experiences because I know I don't have the same experiences like everyone else. But yet I acknowledge them. They humble me, and they keep me very grateful, very grounded for my experience of living in America.
Well, I hope that's a positive sign of change over the years, and will just continue to be more so when, you're a grandmother someday, hypothetically. So, we'll see what happens. So we've kept you for a while. I really appreciate your time. One question, and we're going to be actually, I should say, we're having Pokey Chapman actually on a podcast to talk some about these same issues.
Okay, Pokey.
Shout out, Pokey, right? So I would encourage people that are watching or listening when we release this as a podcast to, continue to listen to our podcast. But, one question I had for you, maybe just really a question for advice, is about, how you think we should be incorporating these kinds of issues into our content, right? Our sort of mission statement is unlocking better insight about women's basketball. Much of that might be more breaking down your games, breaking down your teams. But, we're not only about stats. We're, interviewing people all the time and hearing stories. At the same time, I think if we only had, as valuable as it would be to maybe as valuable as it would be to have conversations this in depth, going forward every Thursday afternoon, at some level, that's also not, I don't think, what, people are coming to us for. So it's, it's a question kind of I at least have internally. So I'm curious what your thoughts would be. Certainly, if we're talking to players, I could see it coming up as part of the conversation when it's not quite as top of mind as we were talking earlier, but I'd really love your perspective on it.
Oh, want me to go? Yeah, that's a really good question, of how we keep going the conversations. Just know they're uncomfortable conversations, but conversations needed to be had, and approaching them in a light manner, like how they come up naturally. And I don't know, I really can't give an answer to how you might state a question or how you're communicating with people. But yeah, just know that never be afraid to ask, because sometimes, or most of the time, a lot of people are so willing to share their story, so willing to share education. I think that's just the first step of just knowing that you're okay to ask, because ultimately we all want to be educated about what's going on in the world. We all want to be united. So I guess that's my answer. I don't know if you have a more in-depth.
No, pretty much the same thing. Just, if you have a question, ask it. We're all human. We all Americans. And yes, it's hard to just say, okay, I can't see color. But we all can do the same thing. We all should be equal, because we're all Americans. But we're all, and even if we weren't all Americans, if like the people that are protesting across the country, we're still humans. We're all human beings. And that's the way God made us. And he made us to where you shouldn't see color, because he did. And he just wants everybody to be able to be the same, be one human being, one human race. And if we can all just do that and continue to educate each other, because that's all everybody wants, is just to be equal, be a human being, and be treated the same. And we know that, there's others that have more than others, but if you still, regardless, if I was born today with a silver spoon in my mouth and she was born and didn't have a lot, we're still human. We still should have the same equal rights, coming up to a lot of the same laws and a lot of the same things, not because of what money could do, but we should have the same rights, the same human rights. And that's what makes us be one. That's what things can make things, other people make things happen in the world if we become one. And that's what the power of education comes from, and just educating, because it shouldn't take money to do a lot of different things. And that's why the policies and things like that have to change, so we can become one human race.
I agree.
Great. I want to be cognizant of your time, so it is 6:30, but thank you both so much for joining us and for talking today. It was really valuable to me and Aaron, and I'm sure very valuable to everyone that was listening as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Hoping that some of the things that we said and shared could help somebody else. Hopefully it's educated you guys, as it educated us, and it can help somebody else.
Absolutely. And, I look forward to having you on, as we sort of alluded to before we went on air, to talk about basketball, because, both of your basketball stories are fascinating as well. So we'll do that again sometime soon.
Soon come.
Soon come. Basketball family, the McCalls. Basketball family. It's in the blood. That's what we say. It's in the blood.
Certainly. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your willingness to come on with us.
All right. Thank you.
You.
Thank you.